glad you mentioned public transport, because one of the things that happened recently, and this I view this as a real challenge for the mindset of regulators. Transportation for London, which is the body that's kind of responsible for regulating public transportation, and specifically taxis, hired cars in London, forgot that its raison d'etre is making sure that there's safe, clean, plentiful public transport in London, and envisioned itself as kind of the protector of the legacy taxi industry. We saw recently a proposed regulation from Transport for London saying that Uber drivers, when they accept a ride, have to wait 5 minutes before picking up the ride, and they're not allowed to use GPS. Now, they're waiting till December for comments on this proposed regulation, but, you know, there was a Kurt Vonnegut story called Harrison Bergeron that was talking about how smart people and beautiful people should have all of these constraints placed upon them in a way so they wouldn't pose competition to people that don't have these characteristics. In a similar way, sometimes you see regulators trying to protect a legacy industry, forgetting that their job, what the problem is that they're actually trying to solve, and imposing constraints on competitors to that industry, on new entrants. Patrick, how is China intending to avoid this problem? And then I'd like to hear from you. How do you prevent new entrants? China is a developing economy, so you have less of an issue with legacy industries, but still, you know, there's some state-controlled companies that may not like new competition from other bodies, and then I'd like to hear from you both.
Well, certainly. You see, how China deals with its transportation problem is a two-pronged approach. China looks at the long term. The long-term solution is the electric vehicle. But however, there's still a lot of problems to resolve, the batteries and also the infrastructures, the price, all that thing. Probably it will take maybe a decade before it really becomes popular. But China has made a point that by 2020, there should be 5 million electric vehicle on the road. Okay. Right now, it's only 500,000. Last year, it's 500,000. The other prong is rapidly, in the meantime, try to get a viable, a alternative fuel that really makes sense. Liquid fuel that really makes sense. And what China's been experimenting doing is with methanol. The other thing is with the biodiesel from jatropha. It's a seed, you know, the physic nuts that's being used. So, you know, China has this way of doing things, and the methanol and the electric vehicle are the two ways to approach it.
Actually, what I found really interesting is that China is not, and this started in Shaanxi province, which is a coal province in China.
Yes,
methanol. What I found really interesting is it started in the light-duty vehicle sector, and now you're seeing heavy-duty vehicle as diesel displacement and
that's correct. That's correct.
Competing with
that's
diesel.
correct. And right now, China is now experimenting with replacing diesel fuel totally with methanol, and now there have been more than 700 purely methanol combustion type of heavy-duty vehicles on the road being tested with M85 to M100. And they have even experimenting with different type of gadgets and additives to the internal combustion engine. And now they come up with something called DMCC, standing for diesel methanol combustion compound, which means they mix the two together, it would decrease on the NOx and make the methanol more burnable. Mm-hmm. And now it's experimenting with that. And it seems to have a great success.
So, Giovanni, I really want to understand from you. From the European Commission's perspective, there are all sorts of problems that the European Commission and the regulators within the European Commission, the Institute for Energy and Transport, and so forth, are trying to solve. How do you make sure that as technologies change, as the ecosystem evolves, the regulators don't remain fixated on either existing monopolist players in the market or particular types of technology, and kind of keep their mind open to the initial problem that they were set with solving?
Yes, I think that for the European Commission is quite clear and mandatory, because whatever we put forward should be technology neutral. That for us is a clear must. So we can never ever impose a kind of solution, because you need to consider simply that Europe is a mixture of completely different social, economic, infrastructure situation. So if you do compare under these angles, the situation in Germany on respect to Portugal, Greece or Ireland is very different. So first of all, we can never even dream to have one solution for all Europe. So we need to find different solutions and to lead to the market to find the ideal solution in different areas, looking again at different conditions, social acceptability, on economic, on infrastructure, and on technology. They should talk to each other. This is why we want to create a kind of overall harmonized framework whereby the different technology, different solutions have to take their best possible pace for implementations. So we give support, for example, in my institute, which is giving support to the technology development, we give support to different technologies. We have inaugurated last week, in fact, at the presence of our Vice President Shevkovich and the Secretary for the Energy USA, the new, completely brand new labs for looking at the electrical vehicles. So we will study the efficiency and also of the electrical vehicle and hybrids, but also the electromagnetic compatibility that these electrical vehicles have to be studied. So new standards, new norms, new test procedure, just to create a market. So if we do give the possibility to create a market for this new technology, to facilitate the investor, to give a kind of, let's say, long-lasting, firm conditions for whoever wants to invest money in this new technology. This is what the European Commission should do. We should not say which technology is going to be because in fact there will be not one technology. There will be many technologies with different also time perspectives. So gas maybe can be a shorter term, plug-in hybrid vehicles again, then fuel electrical vehicles, and then maybe a long-term hydrogen fuel cell. But we leave to the market to decide and to the member states to find their own final ways. For us, it's important to develop, as Europe, a kind of harmonized approach towards this kind of revolutionary approach towards the transport. But definitely, we will never, ever think to privilege any kind of technology via standards or via protecting action. Never, ever.
So that's very, so the key words I hear from you, the key phrases, one is market, market, market. Yes. Let the market operate to its fullest extent while the regulators determine the goals in a technology neutral manner that doesn't prejudice towards any particular path.
Absolutely.
And from a German perspective?
We are also technology neutral. And we have developed here, I can show it to you, the mobility and fuel strategy of the German government. It's called MFS. And there we are discussing what we can do in the future with all stakeholders. Because we don't know exactly who is, for example, for the trucks, we can't operate, for example, with battery-driven trucks. That's not possible. Therefore, one of the solutions would be in the future, for example, LNG, and perhaps on the long term, it could be fuel cells. We don't know exactly where we will reach in this moment. And for example, for the battery cars, we have at least the aim of 1 million electric battery-driven cars in 2020. We have now from the German automotive industry, from the OEMs, we have 29 models, and you can choose the car if you want to have it. But in our point of view, in the first years, for example, we didn't have the models of these battery cars the people would buy. But I think it will change now, and perhaps we will reach this ambitious 1 million aim. I think so. We can do it. And therefore, I think we are also very open, but that's not only for the car industry, that's also for the whole transport field. That means for trains, there we drive electrically, but we have many of our tracks where we don't have electricity, and therefore we look what we can do there. If we, for example, we will have a fuel cell train, for example, in the future. We have there tests Perhaps we can reach the aim also. And then we have the same, for example, it has been mentioned of one of the speakers before, for example, for the aircraft. We're also looking what we can do. We are doing it inside the European community. For example, Airbus has one electric plane, for example, and we also have one fuel cell or one plane of Airbus also A320, which is fuel cell, not fuel cell, with hydrogen driven plane. And then we do the same, for example, what has mentioned E-Line. It's for us, it's multimodality. That's what's the main thing, I think, because we want not have for a normal combustion engine car, we want change it with an electric or battery car. That we don't want to have, because that's not what we want. We want the multimodality in the future. New concepts, that's the most interesting thing for us.
So let me ask you this. What are you most excited about looking forward into the future? When you look at the whole ecosystem of fuels and transportation, what are you most excited about? What do you personally think has the greatest potential?
But if I may say the following, I think that it's important, if I may go backwards just a moment, then I come to your point. If we really want to be credible, to introduce this concept of, for example, electrification of transport, as an example, I think one aspect that we do not consider ever sufficiently is the information. So the cultural evolution that we need to grow in our citizens, because, for example, people think, okay, if I do have electrical cars, I have solved the problems. No, I have no more pollution. But they don't know that if the electricity is not produced in a sustainable way, if you do produce energy via normal fossil fuel-based power, then it's totally useless. So the introduction of sustainable transport policy means that you need to introduce a sustainable policy towards all the sectors, energy production, a completely new modernization of the electricity distribution system, because at the moment we don't have, if you do simply plug in millions of cars in the present situation, it will collapse. So we do need what we call the smart grids with completely different management systems. Because again, you need to have a possibility for the people to plug in the car and therefore to discharge or charge his vehicle at the moment they want, which again means you need to get access to the energy market. Do we have access to the energy market at the moment? No. So it's a completely different way to look at the future management of the entire energy system. So people should become proactive part of the system, what we call prosumer. So they need to choose when is the moment. Then security of information, because when you plug in your car and you put your own card to get the electricity, everybody knows this. So the security and confidentiality, but on the other, reliability of the information you exchange between the car, yourself, and the system, it's another key aspect for security of the system. So you understand the security of information, so exchange of information, language and security of exchange of information. The manager of the entire revolutionary smart grid system, the access to the market, the technology, the distribution. This is the key challenge that we do, what we call interoperability. What we have inaugurated again in my institute a few weeks ago was we call interoperability center, because we don't look just at the electrical vehicle per se, to develop new standards, new testing method, new technology, the plug-in physical plug-in, but this is just one part of the problem. The problem is how to handle this technology development together with all the other aspects in the net, so in the system, in the market, in the prosumer, so the consumer behavior. So this is what we call interoperability concept. This is for me the most exciting new aspect that I want to see develop whenever we talk about new technology to be introduced either in the energy sector or in the transport sector. Because otherwise, again, we will not solve the problem in a looking forward and stable situation.
Let me interject.
There you go.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
At the United Nations, the Secretary General has most recently established a high-level advisory group on sustainable transportation. Sorry. Yes, good. Let me fill this in, okay? At the United Nations last year, the Secretary General has established a high-level advisory group on sustainable transport. And they have adopted the definition of sustainable transport from the Bogota Declaration, the working definition, which stated, the provision of services and infrastructure for the mobility of people and goods is needed for economic and social development and improved quality of life and competitiveness. These services and transport infrastructure provide secure, reliable, economical, efficient, equitable, and affordable access to all, while mitigating the negative impacts on health and environment locally and globally, in the short, medium, and long term, without compromising the development of future generations. Now, I was fortunately appointed to be one of the 12 members of this high-level advisory group, and I'm the only energy man, so my hobby horse is, of course, dealing with alternate fuels and energy appropriation. And for this working group, we address short-term, mid-term, and long-term. For short-term, we concentrate on what elements in the present system of transportation that are sustainable and immediate concerns and problems, and how to address and rectify them. For example, safety problem of transportation, and then the energy considerations, so from a use less and use efficiently culture to the concept of smart transport. For smart transport, it means use less, use efficiently, and use cleanly. That's smart transport. The culture of utilizing public transportation, the use of modern technologies to minimize conventional transportation, fuel choice with alternate fuels, emission problem, mitigating measures, and also thorough fair management and cooperation, meaning airspace cooperation, sea lanes cooperation, rail system integration, road surfaces, pedestrian walkways, and others. For midterm, is to address the problem of how to add new initiatives to assure sustainability and how to prevent and obviate old problems, such as urban design and city planning, promotion of the culture of using public transportation, walking and bicycle riding, research and development of alternative fuels and renewable energy resources, and accessibility and equality. Is mobility a right or a luxury? With the long-term visions, we examine the needs of transportation and physical mobilities in this changing world and how to meet such needs in a sustainable manner, and so on and so forth. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, I will be looking forward to is a midterm report that will be forthcoming in the middle of next year.
All right. Dr. Steiner, would you like to jump in very quickly? I think we're about to be kicked off the stage, but if you have a very, very quick thought about what most excites you.
Yes, what we are doing in Germany, we have the energy change that you know. That means starting from 2020, we won't have any atomic energy, and therefore, and we have the decarbonization also in the transport sector. That means, I hope we will reach. And then we will have renewable energy inside Germany.
Well, thank you very much to our speakers and to our audience.